again. Well, in this week's programme, we're going to meet a Norfolk windsurfing pioneer who's trying to become the fastest sailor in the world. But before that, let's meet a group of powerboat enthusiasts who met up on the Norfolk Broads to let off steam.
Becoming a gay one, I used to think it a grey one, but I discovered it's A1 just now. It's taken on a new meaning, it's very nice to be seen in. There's been a little spring cleaning somehow. Who's been polishing the sun, rubbing out the clouds of grey? They must have known just how I like it. Everything's coming my way.
Some schoolboys want to be train drivers. Others dream of running away to sea. A lucky few have combined these two fantasies into one pastime.
So how much time do you have to spend polishing?
Not, well, there's a lot of time when you're sitting about not doing anything else.
Polishing the sun, rubbing out the clouds of grey. They must have known just how I like it. Everything's coming my way. Tell me who's been polishing the sun, sweeping all the stormy clouds away. They must have known just how I like it. Every little thing's going to be okay. Tell me who's been teaching all the birds how to sing a merry roundelay. They must have known just how I like it. Everything's coming my way.
All this early morning activity gives new meaning to the expression, a watched kettle never boils.
Yeah, we're just getting the steam up to now 100 pounds per square inch, so we shall be setting off in a moment. Coal fire nicely red, and we can then force the draft by using the blower. And the boat's now built in 1981, it was the original Frolic. It's like a big toy, really.
It's surprising that many of these boats are actually copies of traditional designs, such as this Noah's Ark look-alike. These hot, temperamental engines are both dirty and can be dangerous. It's worth considering that a 4-horsepower outboard motor would be both cheaper and far easier to use. But steam has a sense of history.
Many of the steamboats in this country follow the Edwardian image when the steam launch was the ultimate status symbol. My own boat is rather more symbolic of the workhorses of that period. It isn't really generally known that steam launches opened up the empire. Boats like the African Queen were all over Africa, the Asian rivers, even North America, quite near to civilization, until the car and lorry came into use in the 1920s. The steam launch was very often the only sensible form of transport.
Of all the lives a man can lead, there's none that's like a sailor's. It's very much more exciting than a tinker's or a tailor's. He leaves his home, sweet home. It seems he loves to roam all over the place, wherever the sea may happen to be. A sailor is found knocking around. He's all over the place.
This rally of enthusiasts on the Norfolk Broads combines the smell, noise and fascination of steam with the tranquility of being on the water. And obviously there aren't any class rules here.
Oh, the basic boat is a fiberglass hull that was delivered to Leicester from the Isle of Wight in 1973. And then, of course, the hull's rather basic, and then she's built up from that point. And in fact, quite a lot of the woodwork was from a company in Leicester who closed down, and they had a dance floor, and in this dance floor was a sprung dance floor, and a lot of the mahogany was built into this boat from that sprung dance floor when they closed down.
Steam seems the ultimate if dirty challenge for man and machine. But can wives, children and pets get involved?
It really is quite a family sport. I think the point about steam launches is that you tend not to go out to sea. You're on fairly gentle waters, and wives quite like that part of it. In fact, there are those who can handle the boats and do engineering work themselves. The time that it does tend to break up marriages is when you spend many hours shut up in a workshop and bring oily feet and oily chippings into the house. Excuse me, I'll just get some water into the boiler. Come on, you cow.
It's something to do with the reciprocating engine. That is something that's going round and you can see all the working parts. It's not like an electric engine where you can't see the power supply. Here you can see exactly where all the mechanisms work. That's why the fascination of steam engines have fascinated children and adults alike for many years. It's the smell. They tend to breathe and appear to be more human than internal combustion engines. They don't race around at thousands of revs a minute. This chap at maximum does about 72 revs a minute. And it's very simple. And it's double acting. That means to say you've got to power every stroke, not like a car where you've got to power every 4 strokes. And you can fiddle with it and it's quiet to run except when this squeak starts.
Coal smells right, it feels right. In fact, in the great days of steam launches, they were changing over to oil before the internal combustion engine came in. But for all that, coal feels right, and using it does give you an indication of what the old people who ran railways and other steam traction had to contend with.
But one couple has rebuilt the ultimate environmentally pure boat.
I decided, rather sadly, that the boat was a little too fine to carry a boiler and steam plant, so I took the next option, which was to turn it to electric, which is very much period. The Thames was full of electric canoes in the era that this boat was built. I had to do quite a lot of research in the electric power, had a motor specially made, found a controller, which you can probably hear is making a bit of noise, less noise if it's going faster. I chose the battery weight to not be excessively demanding both on cost and the amount that the boat's going to draw, and it gives me about 5 hours cruise. That's at full power. Overnight charging, which if you hook onto economy 7 would cost about 30p, I reckon. And tonight I'm going to have to walk around with the end of my extension lead finding a friendly power point to plug into.
Many of the boats seem to owe their pedigree to the drawing board of Heath Robinson. Unlike the diesel engine, which should burst into life at the turn of a key, steam engines need to be nurtured, cosseted and tended. It's a love affair with the occasional breakdown in the stormy, or perhaps it should be steamy, relationship.
The fleet's in port again, back home, in port again, yo-ho, yo-ho, now we'll have a jolly good time. The boys are here to find the girls they left behind, yo-ho, yo-ho, now we'll have a jolly good time.
Even the most tranquil pastime sparks off a little competition.
Came up an average of 5 knots, holding 100 on the gauge all the way.
And you expect us to believe that?
The casual observer might be forgiven for thinking that the main objective of today's gathering is to turn coal into beer in the most complicated manner possible.
Now we'll have a jolly good, really wonderful, mighty marvelous time.
This is a growing hobby that owes its origins to traction engines and Victorian railway locomotives. Perhaps that's why so many seemingly sensible people devote their weekends to getting dirty, smelly and oily.
Yeah, well, I don't think I'm eccentric, but all the rest of them are. They're absolute nuts, most of them.